I married into a family where my worth was measured by how much I endured without breaking. That was the silent rule my mother-in-law lived by. She didn't like me, didn't want me, and never missed a chance to make sure I felt like an outsider. But even then, I never expected her to cross the line she did. It started on a Sunday morning. I woke up, stretched out my hand, and felt the cold sting of absence on my ring finger. My wedding ring, my only tangible memory of a day I once thought was filled with love, was gone. At first, I thought I'd misplaced it. I tore through drawers, checked under furniture, and even looked in the laundry basket. Nothing. I went into the kitchen, still half frantic, and found her standing there with the kind of smug smile she wore like perfume. She was stirring tea as if the world around her were perfectly peaceful. My husband sat at the table, scrolling on his phone, pretending not to notice the storm brewing in my chest. "Have you seen my ring?" I asked him. Before he could answer, she placed her cup down and said, "Oh, that?" I took it. Just like that. As casually as if she had borrowed a spoon. My stomach dropped. "You what?" She didn't flinch. "It shouldn't be in your hand. I gave it to someone who deserves it." I felt something inside me go sharp, cold. "My real daughter-in-law," she said proudly. "Armin's wife. She's the one who should have it. Not you. Her favorite son. The golden child. The perfect one." She had always made it crystal clear that she wished my husband had married someone else, preferably someone of her choosing. But for her to take my wedding ring, the ring my husband placed on my finger in front of witnesses, that was another level. I looked at my husband then, waiting for him to say something. Anything. He didn't even look up from his phone. "You're overreacting," he said. "It's just a ring." Just a ring. To him, maybe. To her, a tool to humiliate me. But to me, it was a promise. One that now felt broken. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I simply stood there, absorbing the truth that had been staring me in the face for months. In this house, I was nothing more than an unwelcome guest, easy to disrespect, easy to discard. She finished her tea and walked past me, gently patting my shoulder like she had just done me a favor. "Be grateful," she said. "Someone like you doesn't need expensive things." That moment was when something inside me shifted. She thought she had taken everything from me. She didn't know she had just given me a reason to take everything from her, and I meant everything. I didn't confront her that day. I didn't yell, didn't demand the ring back, didn't even tell her what I was planning. I simply walked away and let her believe she'd won. People like her only understand the language of control, and she was convinced I had none left. But she didn't know the one thing that made her arrogance dangerous. The house she ruled like a queen. It wasn't hers. Not legally. Not on paper. When I married my husband, I put my inheritance money from my parents into buying and renovating this very house. My husband's family was drowning in loans. They needed a miracle, and unfortunately for them, I was that miracle. The only condition my father insisted on before handing me the money was that the house be put under my name alone. At the time, I didn't think much of it. Now I saw it was my shield, and soon, it would be my sword. For months, I had tolerated their insults, their rules, their endless attempts to break me. I did chores while she bragged about how her real daughter-in-law had a perfect traditional upbringing. I cooked meals she criticized. I cleaned the rooms she dirtied out of spite. I lived quietly, thinking peace could eventually grow in this place. But when she stole my ring, I realized peace wasn't possible with someone who thrived on cruelty. So I started gathering what I needed. First, I met with a lawyer who handled the property purchase. I confirmed every detail. Yes, the house was solely in my name. Yes, I had full legal authority over who stayed and who didn't. Yes, I could demand compensation for damages, financial or emotional. Then I requested copies of every document related to the house, every receipt, every repair bill, everything I had paid for. The stack was thicker than I expected. Seeing it laid out in front of me made something click. They had been living rent-free under my roof while treating me like an outsider. Next, I started quietly packing up my personal documents, jewelry, and sentimental things. Not running away, just preparing. Because when I moved, I wouldn't be alone. It would be with my house. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law kept flaunting the ring every chance she got. She even sent a picture of Armin's wife wearing it at a family dinner I wasn't invited to. The message attached was simple: "See how beautiful it looks on someone worthy." She had no idea she was digging her own grave. The night before everything changed, she barged into my room, complaining about me not ironing her clothes properly. She lectured me like I was a maid she hired, not the woman who owned the floor beneath her feet. As she walked out, she said, "This is my house. You follow my rules." I looked at her and smiled for the first time in a long time. That was the last night she would say those words. The morning everything shifted started like any other. Her voice echoing through the hallway, barking orders at me while sipping the tea I made. She always walked around the house like she was conducting an orchestra, made of servants, except the only servant was me. But that day, I didn't move. I didn't rush. I didn't answer. I just watched her walk past me, unaware that every step she took was on ground that no longer welcomed her. My husband wasn't home. Good. He had gone to help his brother, the same brother whose wife now wore my wedding ring like a trophy. My mother-in-law hummed loudly as she prepared for her weekly ladies' gathering, where she would gossip about me for hours. She didn't understand that she wasn't the only one preparing for something. I waited until she left the house for the market. The moment the door closed behind her, I made one call. "Everything ready?" I asked. "Completely," my lawyer replied. Within the next 2 hours, a team arrived: professional movers, my lawyer's assistant, and a locksmith. They moved like a silent army trained for this exact moment. First, the locks were changed. Then, every item that belonged to her, every expensive decoration she took from her sister's house, every piece of furniture she claimed she bought, every antique she bragged about, was documented and packed. I didn't touch anything that wasn't legally hers. I didn't need revenge built on pettiness. I wanted revenge built on truth. One by one, her belongings were taken outside, loaded onto a truck. The living room grew emptier. The hallway looked wider. Even the kitchen felt lighter, as if the walls themselves were relieved. When the house was finally stripped of every piece of her presence, I walked through each room, breathing freely for the first time in years. The silence was unfamiliar, but it wasn't empty. It was peaceful, clean, mine. By the time I heard her car pull up, the entire house was transformed. I stood by the door, waiting. She barged in with bags of spices and fabric samples. She froze mid-step when she noticed the empty spaces. What is this?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Her eyes darted to the movers rolling out the last cart of her boxes. "What are you doing? Stop! Put that back!" she shouted. The movers ignored her, perfectly instructed. My lawyer stepped forward and handed her the envelope. "These documents state that the homeowner, your daughter-in-law, has issued a legal eviction notice. You are to vacate the premises immediately." Her face went pale. She looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time. "You can't do this to me," she said, her voice desperate. "I already did," I replied. Her mouth opened, ready to spit venom, but the words died when she saw the calm on my face. She had no power left to use. No ring to flaunt. No lies to hide behind. "You stole my ring," I said quietly. "So I took back everything you stole from my life." She reached for me, maybe to beg, maybe to argue. I stepped back. "Your things are outside. Your car is waiting. And this house? It was never yours." Tears gathered in her eyes as the truth finally settled like a weight she couldn't lift, and for once she had no words. The news spread through the family faster than I expected. I knew my mother-in-law would run straight to her favorite child, the golden son, and the moment she reached his house, she must have spun a story dense enough to choke on. By afternoon, my phone lit up with call after call after call. I didn't answer a single one, not my husband, not his brother, not their gossiping wives, not the woman who once wore my ring. Silence was the one luxury I finally allowed myself. Around sunset, I heard loud banging on my door. Not polite knocking. Rage-filled fists. My husband's voice cut through the quiet like a blunt knife. Open the door. What did you do to my mother? He yelled. I walked to the door but didn't open it. I didn't need to. I already knew what was coming. You embarrassed her. You humiliated us. Us? I said through the door. Or her. I could almost feel him bristle on the other side. You had no right to throw her out of my house. A bitter laugh escaped me. Your house? I said softly. Read the deed again. He went silent for a moment. Then, suddenly, his tone changed, dripping with manipulation. Baby, open the door. We can talk. You're overreacting. Overreacting. Always their favorite word. I stepped away from the door and let him scream. It lasted 5 minutes, 10, then 20. Eventually, the yelling turned into banging again, and then another voice joined his. His mother. She stole everything from me. She shrieked. She planned this. She's evil. I stood at the top of the stairs listening to her perform for an audience of one. She had practiced this kind of drama her entire life. But this time, she wasn't dealing with the silent girl she'd bullied for years. When they finally left, defeated and exhausted, I thought I'd have the night to myself. I was wrong. The next morning, I received a message from my lawyer. She's contesting the eviction, he wrote. But she's losing already. He attached a photo of her signature, acknowledging that she lived there with permission. Permission that I had every legal right to withdraw. The next blow for them came 2 days later. All the items I'd removed from my house, her precious antiques, her expensive drapes, her luxury tea sets, and that ornate vanity she stole from her cousin, were delivered straight to her front yard. Not inside. Not nicely placed. Publicly dropped off right where the neighbors could watch. And they did watch. From behind curtains, from open lawns, from balconies. Whispers rose like smoke. Her reputation something she polished harder than her. Jewelry cracked right in front of her. She called my husband. My things. They dumped everything outside. What do you expect me to do? He muttered, because by then, he'd heard something else. His brother's wife, the one wearing my ring, had been confronted by her own family. They didn't like thieves. Especially not thieves who brag. The fallout was spreading like fire, and none of them could contain it. My husband tried coming again. He stood on my porch at midnight, whispering apologies, begging for a chance to fix things. I didn't open the door, not because I was angry anymore, but because I was finally free. Peace didn't come suddenly. It crept in the way dawn does, quiet, slow, almost shy. For the first time in years, the house didn't feel like it was holding its breath around her. No footsteps pacing. No doors slammed passive-aggressively. No fake coughs at the dining table to remind me I wasn't good enough. Just silence. A good, clean silence. But peace wasn't the end of the story. Not yet, because revenge, the kind she earned so patiently over the years, wasn't just about removing her from the house. It was about removing the power she believed she had over all of us. And in the weeks that followed, that power shattered. It started with the financial audit. See. Everything she touched, every bill she insisted on handling, every loan she pretended to take for the family, every little fund she kept in her own name, I had documented for months. Screenshots, bank statements, transfers. She thought no one noticed. When my lawyer submitted the files during the property contest she tried to file, her voice on the recording almost made him smile. This house is basically mine. I paid for everything. Except that the documents said otherwise, and the court clerk? He didn't even hide his amusement when he read the numbers out loud. She had contributed nothing. Not 1 rupee. Not one receipt. Not one legal claim to anything. Her son, the golden boy? He tried defending her, but the paperwork was too neat, too clear, too undeniable. The judge dismissed her request in under 6 minutes. 6 minutes to undo 6 years of her tyranny. When she stormed out of the courthouse, she yelled at my husband, loud enough for everyone to hear, "You worthless boy. You married the wrong girl. She ruined everything." He didn't shout back. He just looked at her like he was finally seeing the truth he'd protected his whole life. And for the first time, the shame wasn't on me. It was on them. Days later, she tried one last stunt. She came to my workplace, not to apologize, not to talk, but to cause a scene. She barged into the lobby and demanded I return her family heirloom ring, the one she gave to her favorite son's wife. She said it belonged to her mother, her grandmother, some dead great-aunt. She kept changing the story. The receptionist called security. And in front of a full room, she was escorted out. Her voice cracked as she yelled threats that no one took seriously anymore. Her authority was gone, dissolved like sugar in hot tea. As for my husband, he tried to hold on a little longer. Messages turned into long voice notes. Voice notes turned to flowers. Flowers turned to handwritten letters about starting over. But there's a moment every person reaches. Eventually a moment where you realize the version of yourself you were with someone no longer exists. That was me. I mailed him divorce papers on a Thursday afternoon, not out of spite, not out of anger, just clarity, because freedom isn't loud. Revenge doesn't always need flames. Sometimes it's as simple as reclaiming everything you were told you couldn't have: your home, your dignity, your peace. And I kept the ring. Not out of sentiment, but as a reminder, on the day I stopped being small in their story, and finally became the author of my own.